The Eiyuden Chronicle series is finally here. A few years ago, the Kickstarter of my dreams appeared. A brand new IP from the makers of my favourite Suikoden series. These guys got together to form Rabbit & Bear Studios. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes had no problems with raising its required funds. In fact, it got there in no time at all, smashing loads of stretch goals in the process. One of these stretch goals was a companion game. That game is Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. The way that the many Suikoden games and spin-off titles all tied together is something that made the series so incredible. Introducing this series with a spin-off title is Murayama's way of saying, I know what's up. It is just so perfect to start the Eiyuden Chronicle series with a spin-off. However, doing this was an incredibly risky move. If this game was bad, what would that say about 100 Heroes, which will be releasing in 2023? To make things even riskier, Rising was not developed by the Suikoden crew at Rabbit & Bear. Instead, Natsume Atari took the lead here, with Suikoden creator Murayama operating as a supervisor. Fortunately, Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is not a bad game. Rising is a taster. It is that tasty appetizer that you're given right before the best 5-course meal that you've ever consumed in your life. Hopefully. It is not an expansive JRPG experience full of hundreds of memorable characters, deep lore, and an unforgettable story. It is instead hopefully setting us up for just that. Rising is like a side quest to next year's 100 Heroes. Before we get into this review, it would help me out a lot if you hit like and sub for way more Eiyuden Chronicle and JRPG content coming soon. Also, let me know what you thought about this game in the comments below. Let's get into it. The main protagonist is CJ, a scavenger who arrives at New Nevea in hope of finding treasure. It turns out to do this, she'll need an explorer's license, and to get this, she'll need to help out NPCs around town and fill out her stamp card. This stamp card is essentially a counter for all of the side quests that she completes. Rising is pretty much a collection of hundreds of fetch quests, but I say this in the nicest possible way. Kinda. CJ and her companions Isha and Garou, who is a kangaroo, will spend a lot of time exploring the town's surrounding areas while completing tasks for NPCs. While completing these quests, you'll also be upgrading the town, which has recently been decimated by an earthquake. There are fetch quests everywhere. I mean, your first task is to find a cat. The amount of damn cats I've had to hunt down over the years. Let's just say if I ever lose my cat, I will know exactly what to do. These side quests are designed to be fast and simple to complete. Most quests even mark where you need to go on the map, and this saves a lot of time needlessly searching around. Between all this questing, Rising does have a main story, and uncovering its mysteries did more than enough to keep me interested. Rising is a light-hearted, fun little journey with some great characters and excellent dialogue. There is quite a lot of text to read, but the writing is always entertaining and made me chuckle more times than I can count. And as a side story should, it also introduces us to a bit of lore, preparing us for what's to come in the future. Visually, Rising looks amazing. The backgrounds are beautiful and the sprites look great. The main characters also have portraits next to their text box, and with the addition of emojis, their expressions are clearly communicated. These portraits also indicate a character's importance, so chances are that at least a few of them will make an appearance in 100 Heroes. While the sprite design is solid, their movements look a lot like marionettes, and this can look a little off at times. I'm glad 100 Heroes changes up the style here. The music is also very good, with a variety of tracks that suited the many locations around New Nevea. Something that I really liked is that the town's music changes every time you fill up your stamp card. But unfortunately, Rising has no voice acting at all. The dialogue is at such a high standard, and I feel that quality voice acting would have taken this to another level. I'm also unsold about the font. Visually, it's a great choice, but it is quite narrow and more difficult to read than most RPG fonts. A huge focus of Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is its town building. Early in the game, CJ is tasked to help rebuild the town. This basically involves talking to shop owners and fetching them some items, so there isn't really much depth here. Eventually, the town will be populated with a variety of shops, from inns to blacksmiths to loads of different stores, and all of these can be upgraded to provide additional functionality. Each of these stores will help CJ out in one way or another. The inn, for instance, provides a bathhouse to temporarily temporarily upgrade statistics, while the pawn shop is the one place that you can sell your unwanted materials. And a special shout out goes to Blue Lightning Flick, who is excelling in his new career choice. I am sure he is working tirelessly to support Nina and her shoe collection. There is a clear gameplay loop when it comes to rebuilding the town and completing the many side quests. Essentially, you trek out to dungeons, find the required materials, return to town, upgrade the shops and your characters, take on more side quests, and trek out to the dungeons once more. There is a Metroidvania approach to this dungeon exploration. Each dungeon has several different routes to take, with some areas blocked off until you've gained access to a particular ability. It is always satisfying returning to previously inaccessible areas and discovering what lies within. Now, Rising is a fairly short game, and while this gameplay loop works well most of the time, it can get a tad repetitive. I mean, for one quest you may need to set out to the Great Forest to collect an item, then return to town to hand over the materials. The next quest you take on may require you to travel back to the Great Forest for a different item. Story quests also suffer from a lot of backtracking, often only allowing you to progress through one single room of a dungeon at a time before returning back to town. Thankfully, there are some decent fast travel options, and on the PS5, load times were very fast. Rising's combat is simple. You control one character at a time, but can switch between them by pressing the respective face button, which also unleashes their attacks. Pressing square will switch to CJ, who specializes in fast melee attacks. Pressing triangle will switch to Guru, who has slow but powerful strikes, and circle will attack with Isha's ranged magic abilities. Character attacks can also be linked together if timed correctly. These link attacks will slow down time and deal massive damage, and it is always so satisfying watching these decimate your enemies. Each character also has a different defensive maneuver, as well as variations in the way that they can traverse the map. For instance, CJ can dash forward while Isha can hover and teleport around. Using these in combination will allow you to access hidden areas within these maps. When starting the game, there really isn't too many options in battle. Even some of the very basic moves are hidden behind upgrades such as double jump and the ability to attack up and down. While this initial limitation may put some gamers off, it'll only take a few hours to start unlocking them, so it was never too much of an issue for me. In terms of difficulty, Rising won't present too much of a challenge. You'll still have to think about how to approach enemies in new areas, but as long as you're regularly upgrading your gear in town and bringing along healing items, you shouldn't have too much trouble. It is worth noting that many early access reviews complained that the game was too easy, but there was a day one patch to balance out this difficulty. But still, if you do want more of a challenge, there is a hard mode that is unlocked when you complete the game. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is designed to be a small introduction to something much greater. It does not set out to tell a lengthy, expansive story with complex mechanics. Rising is a short but sweet experience that establishes some lore, introduces us to some great characters, and will hopefully generate some excitement for 100 Heroes coming next year. For what it sets out to do, Rising does an excellent job. Its visual style and supporting soundtrack is fantastic. The dialogue between the characters is also very well written. And while the combat is fairly simple, I had a lot of fun zooming around these maps unleashing linked combos. My only real criticisms with Rising is that it can get quite repetitive in the bazillions of side quests and backtracking that you'll need to do. That and every mechanic from the town building to the combat is fairly basic. Improvements in these areas would have resulted in a higher score. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is not going to blow you away, but hopefully it will pump you up for 100 Heroes. What did you think of Rising? Let me know in the comments below. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you like this, hit like and sub for loads more Eiyuden Chronicle and RPG videos. See you next time.